Society has sent you an incomplete story. It's a narrative handed down like a script, telling you how to act, who to be. A story that convinces you to stay quiet, stay pleasant, stay small. You become friendly. You become loyal. You become exactly what they asked Tan. The most dangerous part is, you believed it. Blindly, without question. From the moment you became aware of yourself, you were taught, youth is fleeting. Beauty fades. Life peaks early. After 30, it's a slow decline. After 40, it's over, so they say. But here's the truth they never shared. All of that is a lie. Life doesn't begin in your 20s. It doesn't begin when you follow the rules or when you finally fit in. Life truly begins the moment you realize that everything you've built so far was not really yours. It was a mirror reflecting other people's expectations. It's not your own soul. And according to Carl Jung, this realization often doesn't come until after the age of 40. Strange to hear that, isn't it? That your true self may only start to surface once half your life is gone? Yes, because no one told you. No one warned you that the first 40 years are just the rehearsal, a rough draft, training ground for the soul. What are those for decades made of? Pressure, conditioning, successes, failures, and most of them, not even yours. You were borrowing values, copying dreams. Living through someone else's story, you were taught who to become, how to speak, how to dress, what labels to wear. You were programmed to perform, not to feel, to conform, not to explore. You learned to silence your inner voice just to be. Accepted in outer circles, but something starts to shift as you approach 40. It's subtle at first, a crack, fracture in the mask you've carefully worn for decades. You wake up one morning and the things that once excited you now feel hollow. Achievements feel distant. Praise feels meaningless. You begin to wonder, who am I when no one's watching? How much of this is truly me? And here's what no one tells you. This is the real turning point, the awakening. I say this from the same dark psychological space explored in Mind Code by Ganesha. This uncomfortable unraveling is your true beginning. Carl Jung put it with piercing clarity. In our early years, craft identities shaped by what others want from us. We become sons, daughters, students, professionals, partners, parents. But in doing so, we drift farther from who we actually are. We blend in, wear social camouflage. We forget. Then something happens. When you cross life's halfway mark, the burden of pretending becomes unbearable. The mask is no longer a shield, it's a prison. It begins to crack. That's when your real awakening begins. And yes, it's terrifying, because everything you believe starts to fall apart. The success you once chased so desperately feels meaningless now. The validation, the applause, the identity you worked so hard to build, none of it fills the emptiness anymore. You begin to see that the story you were told was never yours. And in that quiet, terrifying moment, you face a choice. Cling to the illusion and wear the same mask for the next 40 years, or rip it off and begin again. It's not easy, and it's not popular, but this is the bitter truth. And very few have the courage to accept it. If you reach the age of 40 without questioning yourself, without ever pausing to reflect on your choices, without wondering if the life you've built might be based on someone else's blueprint rather than your own truth, then there's only one conclusion to draw. You are still asleep. And the harsh reality, most people today are still asleep. 2, not because they can't wake up, but because they refuse to open their eyes. Why? Because the lie they've been living feels safe. The old, familiar comfort of routine, even if it's fake, offers the illusion of control. It feels easier to walk a known path than to face the uncertainty of the unknown. They stay, they repeat, they obey. But for those few who dare to face the truth, something powerful begins to unfold. Freedom. Because when you stop living for the world's approval, when you stop asking, what do they want from me? You begin, for the first time, to live on your own terms. When you realize that just because you've walked a certain path for years doesn't mean you're chained to it forever, that's when you reclaim your power. And when it finally hits you, that true success isn't about applause, recognition, or titles, but about feeling whole and aligned within. That's when real living begins. But now comes a question, one that may make you squirm in your seat, one that refuses to be ignored. How much of the life you're living today is really yours? Is what you do each day a reflection of your soul, or just a reaction to other people's expectations? You living, or are you simply performing? It's tempting to turn away, to shut your eyes, to keep walking the path blindly. Don't ask too many questions. Don't think too deeply. But one day the truth won't knock politely. It will break down the door and walk straight in. One day the weight of pretending will crush you. The mask will become too heavy. The performance, it's exhausting. And when that day arrives, when you finally look around and realize that the path you've been walking was never really yours to begin with, what will you do then? It's the real key. Turning 40 is not the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of something entirely different. A quiet, personal revolution. This is not a decline, it's a rebirth. It's the moment when you're finally free to break the chains, to toss out the old script, to let go of the roles others gave you, and begin writing your own story, page by page. The only question is, are you ready? Carl Jung called this the individuation process. But in the words of Mind Code by Gish, I call it RIPth, the sacred rebirth of self. Now the decision is yours. You're standing at the crossroads, and this moment, right here, is the turning point. It's where the awakened and the unaware choose separate paths, because simply knowing that you've been living a borrowed identity is not enough. Simply realizing that your life has followed a script written by someone else still isn't enough. The real question is, now that you've seen the truth, what will you do with it? And that, right there's where the real struggle begins. When you start peeling back every layer of who you're not, when you begin tearing away the expectations, the validation seeking, the shallow definitions of success, the first thing you feel isn't peace. It's emptiness. A quiet, almost unbearable emptiness. Because for so long, your identity was built not on who you are, but on what you do, what you achieve. How do others see you when you finally begin to leave all of that behind, the expectations, the roles, the identity you've worn like a uniform? One of the most difficult questions rises from the silence like a shadow in the dark. Who are you when no one is looking? This is the very reason why most people avoid this path. They prefer to stay comfortably locked inside the walls of a false identity. Why? Because at least it feels familiar. Because stepping away from it into the unknown means facing something truly terrifying, that emptiness and that fear. It's real. It creeps in quietly and grips your heart from within. It's not just an abstract concept, it's physical. It's emotional. It goes deep, like a cold wind slicing through the soul. But Carl Jung, with all his psychological depth, understood something that most of us overlook. This emptiness is not the end. It is not a void to be feared. It is the fertile soil of rebirth. Because when you give up everything that you are not, when you strip away the masks, the filters, the borrowed scripts, you finally stand in the raw silence of your own life. No noise, no roles, no distractions. And that is where the real journey begins. Only in that sacred stillness can you begin to recreate yourself, not as the person others wanted you to be, but as the person you were meant to become, an identity born from your soul, not from their expectations. And make no mistake, this is not a quick fix. This is not a sudden epiphany. It is a long, deliberate process. A journey of searching, experimenting, stumbling, learning, and growing. You will make mistakes. You will fall short. And that is exactly how it should be. But if you take only one thing with you on this path, let it be this. This journey is a solo one. As you may have heard before, echoing from that same dark corner of the Mind Code by Ganesh, this fight is yours alone. No one can do it for you. No one will hand you a step-by-step manual. No one can map the path ahead because that path doesn't exist yet. You must create it. Your true identity isn't hidden in books, in advice columns, or in fleeting social trends. It's buried in experience. In every step you take forward, in every risk you dare to embrace, in every fall you recover from, in every mistake that teaches you, humbles you, reshapes you. And here comes the bitter truth. Not everyone reaches this point. Most never even try. They cling to the comforting lie because illusion is easier to live with than truth. Even if that comfort is fragile, even if it's fake, they hold on to it like a raft in a storm, because breaking everything apart and starting from zero, that's terrifying. And sitting face to face with yourself, with no distractions, no noise, just you and your reflection, that's not just uncomfortable. It's brutal. But if you can do it, if you can take that terrifying leap into emptiness, if you can shed every identity that was never truly yours, if you can fearlessly explore who you might become, then and only then will you begin to uncover the deepest truth, a truth that Carl Jung spent a lifetime trying to convey. Life is not about fulfilling expectations. It's about transcending them. It's about becoming someone no one expected but who you were always. It's meant to be. And that's only possible when you strip away every false layer, when you burn through the fog of illusion, and when you finally say, I am done pretending. When you are free from everything that you are not, only then can you move towards becoming the person you were truly born to be. And now comes the real game. Because as soon as you begin tearing through those layers, as soon as you look that emptiness in the eye, the very emptiness we spoke about in the first episode of Mind Code, a rude awakening occurs. The world you once called your own suddenly feels unfamiliar. Strange, distant, alien conversations that seemed important earlier now seem useless. The very same dialogues you once clung to, those chats filled with daily updates, shallow reassurances, and predictable replies, now feel empty, almost pointless. Those goals, those targets, for which you used to jump out of bed each morning with urgency and discipline, suddenly seem ridiculous. You begin to wonder, why did I ever think that was meaningful, when those fears the ones that chained you down? For years, quietly dictating your choices and limiting your movements, they begin to loosen their grip. You can feel it. It's like a fog clearing from your mind, a veil finally being lifted from your eyes. And then, in an unexpected moment, you see the truth, not a romanticized or glamorous truth, but a naked, raw, uncomfortable reality staring you in the face. A world where people rush around wearing carefully crafted masks, trapped in roles and labels, blindly racing toward achievements that don't truly satisfy. A race with no finish line? And here comes the part no one warns you about. As soon as you wake up, you start feeling alone. Why? Because now you begin seeing things that others still can't. You notice subtle dynamics in people's behaviors. You detect the underlying patterns in social systems, unspoken expectations, and emotionally empty rituals that once felt normal. And with that clarity comes discomfort, because you now realize, perhaps for the first time, that most of the people around you are not walking the same path as you. The friendships built solely on shared interests or convenience start to crumble quietly. Relationships, which once felt comforting but were always scripted, now echo hollow and forced. Small talk becomes unbearable. Parties feel like noise. And this is exactly where most people get scared and retreat. Because let's be honest, who wants to feel alone? Who wants to admit that they've spent years, even decades, bonding with people they never truly connected with? But brother, this is the real test. Because the moment you let go of your false self, you also lose those who only loved that version of you. It's harsh. It's painful. But it's also a necessary cleansing. A ruthless filter that leaves only truth behind, until you begin living in alignment with your true self. You will never attract those who are meant for the real you. And this is where the second phase of your journey begins. Because individuation, as Jung called it, is not just about letting go. It's also about rebuilding from the ground up. This is where the fork in the road appears. Some people get lost here, and some awaken even deeper. Many fall into a spiral of despair at this point. They begin longing for the past, reminiscing about the days when they fit in, when life at least felt easier, more predictable. They wonder, wasn't it better when I belonged somewhere, even if it was a lie? But others, they come to a powerful realization. Now, for the first time in their lives, they have the chance to choose consciously, deliberately, just like we say in every video of Mind Code by Ganesha. Now is the time to pause and ask yourself the one question that can change everything. What kind of life do you want to live? A real one or a fake one? Until now, most of your choices, your career, your relationships, your lifestyle were dictated by the expectations of others. You did what you were taught to do. You followed what society labeled as success. You checked the boxes, played the part, but now, for the first time ever, you're standing at the edge of something else. Freedom. The freedom to decide what matters to you. To choose who you want to be, not for applause, not for approval, but for truth. And this brings in the next big fear, the fear of making the wrong choice. Because as long as you follow someone else's path, you can always say, well, I was just doing what everyone else was doing. But when you take ownership of your own life, when you start carving your own path, then every mistake, every wrong turn, every failure becomes your responsibility. And that's a heavy burden to carry. That's why so many people, even after waking up to the truth, still hesitate. They're afraid to take full control, afraid of failing without someone else to blame, afraid of owning their own power. But make no mistake, this fear is the gateway. And what lies beyond it is a life that's not only real, but entirely yours. They remain trapped in that limbo, a space where they are neither fully asleep nor truly awake. Zone of mental paralysis, too aware to stay numb, yet too afraid to take that first step. It's caught between knowing and doing, between comfort and the unknown. And this is where Jung's next teaching becomes painfully relevant, because individuation is never easy, not even close. It demands more than reflection. It demands confrontation. It forces you to stand face to face with your deepest fears, to challenge everything you once believed to be true. It doesn't politely knock, breaks through. Every comforting lie you've clung to is peeled away, one painful layer at a time. It doesn't just invite you to start over, it demands that you destroy everything old. It's in rebuild from the ashes. And let's be honest, this is a path very few people dare to walk. But in the world of Mind Code by Ganesha, this is exactly the path we illuminate. It is not just a process, it's a profound journey of death and resurrection. And like all rebirths, before the light comes darkness, a silence, a void, breakdown. But here's what most people never get to discover. On the other side of that darkness lies something priceless: absolute freedom. Freedom from roles, from masks, from the cage of what will people think. Because when you finally rip off the mask that society glued to your face, when you stop living according to expectations and start living by your truth, something strange begins to happen. That constant anxiety, it begins to fade. That endless craving, the nagging restlessness, the feeling that something is always missing, starts to dissolve. You no longer need applause or validation to feel worthy. The pressure to fit in, the habit of agreeing, to keep the peace, the performance to stay relevant, all of it falls away. And what takes its place is something rare: peace. Not the temporary kind that comes from a new achievement or a round of compliments, but a peace that grows from within, rooted in the simple truth that you are now living by your own rules. This is where the shift happens. The shift between merely existing and truly living, between reacting automatically and choosing intentionally, between being a copy and becoming the real version of yourself. But brother, now listen closely to one last truth. This process never ends. There's no finish line, no certificate of completion. There will never be a day when you can confidently say, now I am completely free. Because individuation is not a destination, it's a lifelong journey. With every new chapter of life, new masks appear. New illusions tempt you. New truths demand to be uncovered. And every time you will have to go deeper, to peel back another layer, to wake up again. The only real difference is this: once your eyes are opened, you can never go back to sleep. And that changes everything. Oh. Because when you finally realize that real life begins the moment you dare to be yourself, your entire way of seeing the world transforms. Your decisions are no longer reactions to fear, but choices made from clarity. You start building connections based on resonance, not convenience. Stop trying to fit in someone else's frame and start living from your own center. You begin to live with intention, not inertia. And that right there is the defining line between those who truly awaken and those who remain stuck in an old, comforting dream. At Mind Code by Garnish, we repeat this truth every time. The biggest question in life is not what should I do? Rather it is, who do I want to become? And the moment you genuinely ask yourself that question, everything begins to shift. It's as if a curtain is pulled back. You start noticing what you used to ignore. You can no longer lie to yourself. Now the most intense part of the story begins, because from this point forward, can't pretend you didn't hear the truth. Can't ignore the tight knot forming in your stomach. You can't dismiss the quiet voice telling you something has changed. And this is the curse and the blessing of truth. Once seen, it cannot be unseen. Once you see it, you can't ignore it, no matter how much you try to look away, distract yourself with routine, or convince your mind that everything is still normal. Deep down, you know something has changed. Something inside has cracked. And that crack, however small it may appear at first, will not stay hidden. It will spread, like a fault line in the ground, growing wider and deeper with time, until one day you're forced to confront it, unless you dare to cross it. Because, brother, as painful as it may be to live in ignorance, waking up and still doing nothing about it is even worse. You cannot unsee what you've seen. And now that you've awakened, even partially, the choice before you is not about clarity or certainty, it's about courage. So listen closely. You are not expected to have all the answers. You don't need to see the full picture before you begin. You simply have to take that first step. Yes, the fear is real. Yes, the uncertainty will feel overwhelming. And yes, you'll often think, what if I'm making a mistake? But that's all part of the process. That's how growth works. If you're not feeling some fear, then chances are you're not really moving forward. Because true growth is uncomfortable and transformation is often painful. And maybe, just maybe, that's why so few people ever get there. Most stay stuck in the same loop, thinking, analyzing, doubting. They keep waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect sign. But here's the truth. Certainty comes later. Action must come first. You must begin before you feel. Ready? That's the only way? So now the real challenge is standing in front of you, plain and clear. Stop waiting. Stop searching for signs. You don't need permission. You don't need someone else to validate your choice. Because the hard truth is no one is coming to save you. No voice will call out from the sky. No friend or mentor will give you the go-ahead. The time to move is not someday, it is now. The perfect moment. It doesn't exist. There is only one moment that's real, the one in which you choose to begin. And that moment, if you allow it, is right now. But let's be very clear, when you start walking on the path of your truth, the world will not cheer. There won't be applause. In fact, what you'll most likely face first is resistance, questions, doubt, criticism. People may try to pull you back, not because they hate your growth, but because your awakening threatens their comfort. Your courage reminds them of their passivity. Your transformation exposes the parts of themselves they've long avoided. And this is your real test. Because this journey is not for them. This journey's for you. So please don't wait for anyone's approval. Don't hope for validation or acceptance. Because let's be honest, who are you? Only you get to define that. Only you can decide who you're becoming. Now the decision lies in your hands. Either you close this video and let these words fade into the background of your routine, or you take the first real step toward a life that is undeniably yours. And if you choose that second path, if you've truly made that decision, then remember this: it's never too late. No matter how many years you've spent in the dark, no matter how long you've lived under a mask or false identity, none of that matters now. Only one thing matters. What will you do next? Because your life is not some pre-written script. This is not a story that's already been decided. From this moment on, everything that happens will depend entirely on your decision. Now, if you've made it this far, if something in you has stirred, something has awakened even slightly, then do one simple thing. Write just one sentence. In the comments below, it is not possible to reverse the awakening. Let us know that you felt it, that something inside has shifted. We want to know who is truly awake now, who is ready to stop pretending and start living for real. And if you felt even a sliver of truth in this message, make sure to subscribe, because this is only the beginning. At Behind the Thought, we don't sugarcoat. We don't pretend to inspire with empty words. Go deep. We break from the inside so you can rebuild yourself from truth as your real self. See you in the next video.